Welcome to Beast TV. What was that? You better get a fresh dip and buckle up. Larry Porsche II. How you doing tonight, partner?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to watch this show unfold here tonight.
Can you believe all the people that's been added to the Facebook page in the past few days? I know Spencer's been busier than a one-legged man in a kick fight.
That's true.
Adding these people. I think they've had to do it in two different posts. They added 86 on one and 50-something on another. It's amazing that we've had that many people come into the family.
That Cam Buckner has some reach, don't he?
Yeah, he does. We want to thank everybody for coming on the show tonight. We're really excited about this show. And because this is our meet and greet recap show. And we want to thank everybody for coming in. We don't know about questions tonight. We may not have time to get into questions. We have so many people that we want to bring on the show. So if you have questions and we're unable to get to them, put them in the comment section, and we will definitely answer your questions there. And I guess we need to bring our the lady of the hour on. Shelly, how you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm great, guys. How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. So, Shelly, why don't you just kind of give us a recap of what you thought about the meet and greet?
Well, I guess I'm going to beat everybody to it. I don't know what they're going to say, but I had an awesome time. I met some of the nicest people. The weather was pretty good after the rain stopped. It was just awesome. We ate good. We ran around and talked and laughed, and it was a lot of fun. We met a lot of good people. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very successful.
I do too, and I was surprised. We had 30-something people there. I have been to outings that, were public outings that didn't have nowhere near that many people. And people, we had two people from Nebraska, the Projersky brothers, come in. We had Miss Christine fly in from Florida. We had people from Kansas and Indiana and Missouri, Georgia, Mississippi, Texas. They came from all over. And it just warms my heart that we have such a loving family here, on the Beast TV. Larry, what do you have to add to that?
Man, it was fun. Everybody blended in well together. We all laughed, joked with each other, told stories of encounters and things that's happened to them and adventures they'd been on around the country. And we ate good, too.
Yeah, we did. Shelley, before you leave us here, why don't you just give us a teaser about what you found?
Gosh, I don't even know where to start. I just wandered down to the water line, found a bunch of trackways. I was amazed. I will discuss more about it later. I want to hear from everybody else first, but you guys, you stay tuned. You're going to hear about what happened when we went down there.
And you actually found 2 different trackways. One day,
yes,
and then you found the multiple trackways the next day on the other side of the bay. Right. And Larry, what did you say after that first day when Shelley told you before people got there that that she found a trackway?
I said, I ain't going down there. I think it took the next to last day for me to go down there and look.
Yeah, pretty much so.
Poor Shelley.
You're going to start listening to me, Larry.
I know.
Well, we will bring Shelley on towards the end of the show and hear more about it. And Larry, why don't you go ahead? Our first guest.
Which one's our first guest?
It is Rodney.
Rodney and Karen Beasley.
Yeah.
Come on down.
We are the next contestants.
All right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. All porch possums and Spencer.
You leave Spencer out of this.
No show. I'm glad he got to come down and teach Larry how to fish, though.
Yeah, that's true. He did do that. He fed me, too. So it was a win-win.
Yeah, that
Awesome.
I really hate that I wasn't able to come down there and see Spencer when he came. I was supposed to have been at another outing, and I had some business I was waiting to hear from, and I just kept getting put off, and I miss Spencer, and I miss going to that other outing. So, but I'm glad Spencer and Anthony were able to come, and Larry, I know, was the gracious host and showed them a good time.
Man, I let Spencer catch the biggest fish.
You let him. Now, you have never been on a Bigfoot outing, Miss Karen.
That is correct.
Would you give us your take of what it was like there?
Sure. Like you said, this was my first ever outing. I wasn't sure what to expect. For so long, I've heard Rodney talk about all of you all. I've heard Rodney talk. Yes, Rodney does talk. And I did listen a little bit. But I'd heard him talk about all of the people, and over the weeks and months, I've heard him in the other room on Thursday nights just cackling out loud, laughing at things that are going on. And he would come and tell me, or I would pop in. I'm like, what is going on? And he would be talking about all of you all and some of the things that you were talking about. And it just sounded like a lot of fun. And then when this meet and greet opportunity came up, I said that I like to camp, so I think I'd like to go. And he's like, really? You? Me, the skeptic? I wanted to go to the meet and greet. I said, yeah, I want to go. So I wasn't sure what to expect, but when we came in on Thursday, it was absolutely pouring. It was a monsoon. And Rodney, being the beast that he is, got our tent put up in the monsoon. And little did we know we were too far away from the rest of you all. So it was nice on the next day when we put the tent on the back of the trailer and moved it on into camp with the rest of you. But it was really nice. Right away, I felt welcome, even though I was definitely the outsider. I did not know any of you. But right away, everybody made me feel welcome. I felt like I had known you all, even though I'd never seen or spoken to any of you before. Everybody was so friendly, just completely laid back, open, welcoming, and it really put me at ease. I knew he would be comfortable with everybody because he has known you all. But being an outsider, I wasn't sure what to expect, but everybody immediately put me at ease.
What did you think of the way that we went about the outing and the different activities that you got involved in? Because you really jumped in head first. You went on day hikes, on night hikes, when we loaded up a caravan and went out and made calls. What did you think of all of that?
I wasn't sure what to expect. Again, this was all totally new to me, but I wanted to experience everything. I was here. I said, I've got this chance and I wanted to jump right in, like you said. And it was very, I don't know if professional is the right word, because I don't know that there is a professional way to do things. I'm still new to everything, but I felt everything was very credible. That was the word that kept coming to mind for me. I've seen stories and heard stories that in my mind, I think that cannot possibly be true. But with everyone I met and the way you all went about things were very credible to me. I thoroughly enjoyed the night hikes, the day hikes, the caravans. All of those adventures took me to places that I'd never been before, never seen before. I've never been on a night hike before. I didn't know what to expect. And I enjoyed hearing people make calls or sounds and then actually listening for responses. And I found myself looking for things that I never thought I would look for, or listening for sounds that I never thought I would hear. And Rodney's shaking his head because I know I never listened. But it was definitely a learning lesson for me. I came away a lot more open-minded than I expected to, but I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of this meet and greet, and I feel like I've gained new family and new friends with each of you all. It was truly a pleasure and an honor sitting around the campfire with everyone, listening to their experiences. I really enjoyed getting to know everybody and listening to their perspectives, and getting to know where they come from and what brings them to this point, to this meet and greet. So I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait for the next one.
Speaking of campfires, who was that awesome guy that built that campfire pit that everybody could stay warm?
I have to tell you, Mark, you were the fire master.
Quite the inferno. I thought Spencer was good, but wow.
Yeah.
You had help, but you were definitely, I was impressed. And not only did we have the big rectangular fire that night, but the next night, because we learned a little bit about the direction of the wind, you moved the entire inferno so it blew correctly the next night. So I was very impressed with the campfire. Nicely done.
Well, thank you. Rodney, what did you take away from this outing?
Well, first and foremost, I took away, I have got to buy a heater for the tent.
Amen.
My fingers and toes turned back to a normal color by Tuesday. So we're good. Now, the hospitality you guys showed everyone, second to none. Always a good time with you guys, ladies and gentlemen, I should say. I thank you for the fun time, for the great weekend. Hope we can do it again sometime. I know that was a lot of work and a lot put on for you guys, put on your shoulders to organize and do, but you did it very well. It was nice meeting everybody. I'm not going to mention any names because I would always leave somebody out. And it was also great to, I will mention one named Dan Rickey. Awesome to hang around a campfire with him again and hear some stories. But it really, it did my heart good to see my wife down looking at a big footprint.
Pictures.
Proposing big footprint.
Always say
probable. Possible. When I usually talk about Bigfoot and I get some kind of eye roll or a little smirk, but yeah, it did my heart good. So there's hope.
Well, we got Karen's expert badge in the mail because over the weekend she become as expert as any of us because she's seen and done as much as any of us now.
I wanted to do my fair share. I wanted to document.
That's what I told Spencer Jameson. The one thing about getting into this community, whenever you step into it, you're as high as you're ever going to get. No matter what people think, that's as high as you get.
Yeah.
And you don't really want to know what people think.
No, we don't care.
We don't care. That's exactly right. Well, we want to thank you, Rodney and Karen, for coming on tonight and sharing your experiences. And it's always good to get with Rodney. And I talked with Rodney about the other night that we're going to, I've got a little project that I would like to do and like to involve him in. But we have heard so much about Karen from Rodney, and it was so good to finally meet you. It really was.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel the same about you all. I had heard so many wonderful things about this group of people, and I was not going to pass up the chance to get to meet you all. And I am so thankful that I did. And I thank each of you because, like Rodney said, that was not an easy endeavor. There was a lot of behind the scene work that went into this meet and greet, and you all pulled it off, and it was absolutely wonderful. So thank you all for allowing me to step into this new world that I'm enjoying.
Well, it was our pleasure, and thank you so much for coming on tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Love you, beasties. Take care.
See ya.
See ya.
Miss Christine, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I am doing just fine, thank you.
You
And I believe you asked me. Go ahead.
You were our special guest. You were the one that flew in from Florida, rented a car, and drove to the outing. Tell us your take on it. Well, first of all, tell us where you're from and tell us how long that you have been searching for this creature.
Okay. I came from Central Florida. I've lived here about 25 years, and we have big footing in all directions: Everglades, Panhandle, Ocala, Green Swamp, where I go. And I think I started in about 2004. I was listening to Art Bell, and there was an expedition going into the Everglades. So I went, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. No squatch activity whatsoever, but just a wonderful time. Loved being out. Loved looking for this animal. And then I went on a second expedition up into the Panhandle, and we had a group of people who weren't really familiar with what to do. So we got, our cover got blown, and the Sasquatch got really, really annoyed with us and screamed, which was a treat for me to hear him scream, even though he was angry. So then the next time I went up to the Panhandle was with Stacy Brown, and we found a really nice track line and just about the same kind of material that we had at this meet and greet. Nice, soggy, muddy area where it looked like a juvenile had walked, and up on the bank, it looked like maybe that's where the mother sat just to watch her child. And the next time I saw Stacy, he had that footprint, one of the footprints we'd cast with him, on the table. And then after that, I decided, okay, I want to find somebody just close to where I live. So I found a group right here, Independent Sasquatch Research Team. And there were 3 people that you might know in that group. There was Chris and Mark on Trail of Bigfoot, which I got to go out with them a couple of times. And I got to go out with Diane Stocking, who later moved to the Pacific Northwest and married Todd Neese. And so I got to go to some of the Beachfoot activities, which was really amazing. Now, as for this trip, I'm not sure how I found your channel, if it was through Dixie Cryptid or through Bigfoot Odyssey, but I listened to it and I thought, I like these people and I like the way they approach things. So I started tuning in, and then I got in the chat room, and when you decided to have a meet and greet, it's like, I got to go. So I did. And yeah, I got there, and I was just like Karen had said, your hospitality was amazing. I had texted Debbie Jones and said, well, I'm just going to stop on the way down and buy some food and a sleeping bag because I'm not bringing anything on the plane. And she said, no, we'll bring extra. We'll bring a cot and a tent and a sleeping bag. And the Monday before, she texted and said, well, we're going to add a couple of quilts to that. And I texted her back and said, oh, thank you, because I'm a Florida girl. I freeze easy. So I was just excited when I got there. She set up the tent for me, and I was toasty with 2 quilts and 2 sleeping bags. It was really nice. So that was great. And then I happened to camp next to Sally Olin. And every time I walked out of my tent, I would say, can I use your stove to heat this up, or, for this? And she'd say, oh, you don't want something out of a can? Have eggs and bacon with me, or let's have some tacos. Or, of course, I wasn't going to turn it down. So I got to know her cooking. And then the track line, of course, was just an extra good bonus to everything that was going on top of all the hospitality and all the friendship and the camaraderie, and getting to meet all of you and talking to you. We found those 2 track lines. We got to go out and talk. We got to go out, and meet, not meet a Bigfoot, but listen to them. There was so many good vocals at the tent that I heard in the tent or just outside of it. Couldn't believe it. It was marvelous. And I loved the night hikes. I liked walking down the road and listening, hearing everybody making calls. And yes. It was so much fun. I just totally enjoyed the entire thing. And then at the end, I was going to get a hotel overnight in Nashville and then fly back. And Mark says, well, Sally's got a nice house. Why don't you just ask her to stay there? And I'm like, I just met her. You want me to ask her if I can go sleep at her house? And he said, yeah, go ask her. So I did the typical thing. I blamed him. I said, Mark told me to ask you.
Thanks for throwing me under the bus.
I just made a new friend. I didn't want to ruin the whole thing right away. She said, well, do you think you can stand me all night? And I'm like, do you think you can stand me? And so, yeah, I spent the night there and had a good breakfast, and we got a good chance to talk. And like I said, it was just marvelous. If you ever do another one, invite me. And all of you out there watching, if you want a really good time, the next time they hold a meet and greet, you got to come too. It's amazing. Oh, I'm going to show you my shirt. This is my Bigfoot shirt.
All right.
Beast TV. Larry, you're sporting one too, aren't you?
Yeah, man.
So anyway, thank you so much for a wonderful time.
Well,
Thanks for coming out. We enjoyed meeting you and talking to you. You had a bunch of great stories to tell, and we appreciate you going through what you did to get there.
Yeah, well, 4 hours, 2 in a plane and 2 in a car was easier than 12, because that's how far it is from here.
Yeah.
wow. It was, you have been in this for 16 years now, and like you said, you've been to Beachfoot and so many different places and outings. I guess me and Larry would like a gauge, and since this was our first one, how would you gauge us for how we accommodated everybody, and as far as the outing goes?
Let's just put her on the spot.
Well, she threw me under the bus.
Revenge. No, I thought it was wonderful. I've been to a few other places, but you were just very, I don't know, careful. And you were always asking, do you have what you need? Is there anything else you need? Is there something you would like? Or it was just, to me, it was really amazing. I have gone out with other people, and believe it or not, I'm not super outgoing. I know I can talk when I want to, but a lot of times in a new situation, I'm kind of quiet, and I'm more prone to listen and just see what people are like before I jump in. And so because of the way I am, a lot of times I go someplace and I don't feel really welcomed and greeted. But I walked in and Debbie's like, "You must be CD Squatcher." I'm like, "Yeah." And she's, "Oh, here's Mark. Come and meet Mark." And then he's taking me everywhere. And by the time I got back, she had my whole tent set up and everything in it. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. So I give you an A+.
Well, I kind of look at you as Dan Ricky's counterpart, because when I see Dan, and I'm not going to give your age away, but when I see Dan getting out and doing what he does, I remember one morning I got up and I thought, I'm going to follow this creek branch up and see where it runs into the ridge line that was across from us, and see if I can find any signs. And I get to walking out there, and I look up, and there is Miss Christine doing the same thing. And I was just so impressed with how your inquisitive mind and your mindset and how you think to actually go deep into the woods and look for signs.
Well, I enjoyed meeting Dan Ricky, and I was kind of surprised to find out I'm a year older than he is. So, yeah, I am proud. I'm a survivor, and I love just being able to get out and go and explore. It's fun.
Well, we thank you so much for coming on, and we thank you for coming, and we think so much of you, Miss Christine. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to call you a friend more than anything. And so thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Well, thank you. I think it's an honor to be your all friends.
Well,
Looking forward to the next time.
absolutely. Well, I think next in line we have Miss Sally Olin. How you doing, Sally?
Hey, Sally.
I'm doing great. How are you all doing?
Doing great. And before we get started, I would just like to say that Sally was our camp queen. And I mean, she took care of everybody. Nobody could walk past her and Michael's camp without getting fed or getting asked how they were doing. And she just really coordinated everything. And it is so appreciative of all that you did.
Well, thank you. I was happy to do it. I'm ready to do it again.
Are
I
you?
think,
I am.
I think Jeff probably followed her home so he can eat some more.
No, but Michael came home with me.
Oh, man.
There's
Well, I'd
Michael.
like to say, first off, you guys, that I'm really grateful that you did this. We had so much fun. I don't remember the last time I had so much fun in a group of people, maybe ever. It was great.
Well, let me ask Michael this. Did
Uh-oh.
y'all figure out anything that y'all forgot to bring?
We brought so much stuff we never even used. I really don't think we forgot anything.
Yes, we did. We forgot the serving spoons.
Oh, we made it though.
We
We
did.
all
We managed.
it.
That's the only thing we forgot.
I know y'all's trailer kind of looked like my backpack when I go in hiking.
I would tell you, I can't believe how much stuff we brought with us. Just stuff that we definitely use, like the tables and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just all the other junk. And I think mainly so much came because it was going to be cold,
Right.
you know, and blankets take up a lot of room. They don't fold small, or at least mine don't anyway.
Now,
They
but
just
before you came on this outing, why don't you tell everybody how many camping trips you have been on?
exactly 0.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you would not know it if you were there and did not know that she had never been camping. We were playing a game one night, some type of card game or something over at Larry's 6-8 months ago. And I think everybody but Larry's sister got that wrong. That
Yep.
Sally had never been camping before.
That's right. This was a bucket list item times 2, not just going camping, but going on a Bigfoot outing. It was great.
What are your thoughts on this outing and how everybody that showed up, whether they enjoyed it, not enjoyed it?
I think everybody had an absolute blast. I didn't see anybody that appeared anyway to be upset or angry. I didn't see anybody that seemed to be bored. I didn't see anybody that was hungry, and if they were, I shoved food down their throat. I think that it was an astounding success. It's unusual to get that many people together and there not be some kind of argument, some kind of drama, something. There was nothing.
Well, one good thing about the whole thing, as far as every Thursday, we go through the chat, or I try and keep up with it. It flies, and but to put a face to all those names was really wonderful. And there's so many great people that showed up. I can't really say that I didn't like any of them. They were all fantastic and way beyond what we had hoped for. So there's a great group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. We loved everybody. I really enjoyed watching Karen Beasley, being Rodney's wife and all. We're curious,
Uh-huh.
But more than that, it's just the wonder that she was experiencing, seeing things for the first time, maybe. The skeptic was starting to lose some of her skepticism. And I just really enjoyed watching that. And she's such a good sport. I was really impressed at how patient she was with all of us, with all of our, did you hear that? What's the dog looking at? You know how we are. It was really good. And that's another thing. I was impressed with the dogs, too. They behaved themselves exemplary. They didn't bark and carry on, act stupid. They didn't make pests of themselves. But Moose and Rusty both, they were focused on one specific spot. And, we'd say something to them. They'd look at us, but their head would immediately go right back to where they were looking. So I suppose there was something out there, because that's not what Rusty does. If somebody calls his name, he's up there wanting love, So I don't know. We heard a lot of things. We heard possible footsteps at night after everything got quiet and we were all laying in bed. It'd be like a one step, stop, that kind of thing.
Those tent walls are really thin, aren't they, when you're hearing something out there?
I got to tell you, there's a big difference between that parachute material, between you and a possible something, and my next big brick house where it's a little bit more stable. Just a little bit. Yeah, that was a little unnerving. I'm not going to lie, it was. I know at one point I had forgotten that we had put a tarp over the tent. So I'm slowly zipping the window down, to peek out the window. And of course, I'm looking at a tarp. I never did get to see what it was that was out there, but something was out there. Everything went through my mind. It's a wild hog. It's a mountain lion. Oh, man.
Yeah, the vocals were really good. The one thing, I had never been to LBL before, and I was impressed on how beautiful the place was. Even driving in and driving out, the place is huge. And the water there at the lake, I mean, I know it was originally a river, but that was just, listen, I would go back there in a heartbeat because it's just so beautiful.
It is, and it is fast. There's over 2,000 miles of shoreline at LBL. It is just huge, and it's in between the Tennessee River and the Cumberland River, and it's like a peninsula in there, and it's just so vast, and you can just get lost up in there.
I can see that.
I am honored that y'all came, and I am so thankful that Sally took on this leadership role of organizing everything, because the food was great. And I'm going to tell you, I got leftover cake at my house, and that I've been
Well, that's where it went.
that I've been nibbling on, and Shelly was giving me a hard way to go because me and Shelly rode up there together, and then we unloaded, and for some reason she took the cakes out of the cooler and left them on my kitchen table. And then I was really waiting on Shelly. Shelly was upset that she left them cakes there. She didn't mean to leave them cakes. And I'm just...
I figured Shelley was upset because all the baked beans you ate, and then she had to ride back with you.
Well, I actually didn't eat any of the barbecue. We were trying to get Jeff Townsend on tonight, and he was kind of having some problems. But me and Jeff went after the food on Saturday, and I know y'all have heard it, but I love me some Jeff Townsend. And I mean that from my heart. And we started getting close, and I talked about we had broken up into 3 different groups. One group was going to Hotel California. Another group was going after Plaster of Paris. To cast the tracks, and me and Jeff went after the food. And I told Jeff, I said, I don't know how long it's going to take them for everybody to get back and eat. And Jeff said, maybe we could go down there and taste some of that food whenever we pick it up. So
well, you got to make sure it's good.
Yeah, and so we did. So when I got back, I was full. I was because Jeff gonna feed you. I mean, I ate like a county sheriff down there at that restaurant where we got that food. Well,
now, how would you know how a county sheriff eats?
Well, I will say this. I don't know how to say this, but
just say it, Mark. Stand and deliver, baby.
Well, I don't have any outstanding warrants as far as I know, so I really wouldn't know how a county sheriff eats.
Oh, good grief.
But
well, I love you guys.
We love you too, Sally and Michael, and we appreciate all that you did. And
we appreciate everything y'all did, and you treat me like a queen always, and I appreciate that especially.
Wonderful time.
Fantastic.
Yes, all right, well, y'all go on and talk to Patrick, and I'll try and herd the rest of everybody.
Yeah, that'll be like herding cats.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Okay.
Bye, sweeties.
Patrick, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing good tonight. Oh man!
Did you eat like a county sheriff tonight?
Huh?
Did you eat like a county sheriff tonight?
Oh man, I done packed the truck again. I'm ready to go.
Well, before we get started, I want to say that I want to thank you publicly for what you gave me, and I'm going to try to hold
and me. Don't forget me too,
and Larry too. Patrick had commissioned 2 knives to be made for me and Larry, and they are buck style knives. They're Damascus blades, and they are handmade, even the sheath that goes into them. And I love my knife, Patrick, and I just want to thank you for thinking of us like that.
You are very welcome, man. I was so happy to come out there and hang out with you guys. It was just a great experience. It was worth every penny of it. 500 miles. Yeah.
Well,
But
tell us where you're from and where you drove in from.
I am actually from West Virginia, and I stay and work in North Carolina. So I drove from North Carolina this time. But it was a good trip. I didn't mind it at all. Wasn't a bad drive.
How many Bigfoot outings have you been on before this?
This is my first one. And man, did I have a good time. I really did. I can't wait till the next one. I'm ready to roll right now.
What did you think about all of the people that came and how, I don't know, in my mind, I just think that 30-something people just meshed so well together and enjoyed each other's company. Did you take that away from that too?
Man, there was not a stranger there. I tell you, everybody was so nice, got along, all the stories that mixed together. It was awesome. It was really awesome. I've been around the horn, and I tell you what, this was a really good group of people just to hang out with and have fun with that I had never met before. It was so nice to put a face with a name. You know, you get on the site and you see the chat, but man, putting a face with a name, that just made it so much better.
It was. And before we get into you and Shelley's hike, I remember you talking about what Christy gifted us with that pumpkin and the design. And actually, we used that for the thumbnail for this show. And I am just amazed at the artistry that went into that pumpkin that she carved out.
That was an awesome carving. I took a good picture of it. I tell you what, I love that kind of stuff anyway, but that was an awesome pumpkin.
Tell us a little bit about you and Shelley. You were the first one there, and you and Shelley got to talking about the being interested in Indian artifacts. And so y'all went looking for Indian artifacts. And just kind of in a little summary, tell us what happened while y'all were out.
Well, she got telling me she liked rocks, and I was telling her I liked rocks. So I said, since the lake over there, the winter level had dropped down, I said, let's go over there and look along that bank, see if we can find some artifacts. And we just kind of eased over there and crossed that little creek and got towards the other side. And that's when we walked up on the trackways there, the footprints she saw. And I said, that's odd, you know, shouldn't be out here barefooted. And we discussed, that it was pretty significant to look at. And then we decided we better get some help and reinforcements on that deal. But yeah, around that point there, it was pretty cool to find.
What all did you take away from this outing?
Well, it made me more of a believer. I know that because I have never in my life found something significant like that. going to make me notice more when I'm out now. That's for sure. And I've hunted all my life, and never really run across. Maybe I wasn't looking, but I tell you, it opened my eyes now. So I'll be searching, man.
Larry, have you got any questions for Patrick?
Well, I know you said y'all found the small tracks first. Is that right?
Yes.
And at what time did y'all find the bigger tracks? Was it later or the same?
Just a few minutes. We just kept easing our way around the edge of the water line there, and we'd look in the mud, the soft parts where the gravel came down, and we come up on the bigger footprint, and measured it, and she took pictures of it, and we tried to assess the situation as best we could. She was more knowledgeable about it than I was, but the tracks kind of leaded around there to that point, and we talked about it. If it'd been a kid or something, the smaller track kids, they run back and forth everywhere. This track here followed the other set, so
Right.
And they continued out to that point, so it was pretty cool.
I know whenever Shelley told me about the smaller tracks, at first I thought, we're at a lake. She said that before y'all had ever discovered the bigger tracks with the small tracks. And
Yeah.
she kept trying to get me to go look at them. And I'm like, I mean, even if they are, what can you do?
I weigh about 230, and I jumped up and down in that surface there trying to make a indentation, and there's no way.
Yeah.
No way. You'd have had to be a pretty good sized person to get that deep.
What went through your head when you saw the big track?
Wow. I thought, wow, this is different. We need to get some help on this one, because I've never seen one that size before, and it was definitely the toes were significant, the structure, the foot, the heel. Yeah, we needed to get some help on that. That's for sure. That's when we come back and start to get more people to come over there and investigate it and get the right things going to look at it.
It was a perfect medium for tracks, to see tracks, because the water was at winter pool, which means that the water level was dropped, and there was outside of the gravel bar was the mud, and then there was the water level. That's how far the water level was dropped. And so I've got a lot of faith in Shelley as far as how she goes about stuff, and knew that she needed to pull back from the area and bring in reinforcements and sit back and come up with a game plan on how we needed to get over there and inspect the tracks better without spoiling what was already out there. And how does it feel to, since you was with Shelley when she found them, to have your name associated with the Read-Noble Trackways?
It feels pretty exciting, really. I can't wait to get back to work and maybe take that foot and show some of them guys that I work with. But yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was very exciting, and it was awesome. I mean, I told her, I said, maybe next time we'll go looking for something else and run into something like that. You never know. Stuff like that can appear anywhere, anytime. But yeah, it was great. It's been good. Been good. I'm ready to go again, man.
Well,
I'm ready.
it was an honor to meet you and spend time with you. And we thank you for driving all that way out to the outing and for coming on the show tonight. And I hope that we can get back together again. And
Hey, man, let's do it.
sounds good. Well, we appreciate you coming on tonight, Patrick, and telling us about your experiences.
Thank you all for inviting me out and taking care of us and feeding us. And it was awesome, man. It was awesome. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, next we have Jamie. How are you doing tonight, Jamie?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing real good.
Jamie, you know where I work.
You guys were talking about coming back. We're going to have to fix something, though. I couldn't keep Larry from trying to play with my knee when we was at the campfire.
Oh.
That might have been Debbie.
You may have to elaborate on that.
Yeah, it was that was pretty cool. I'd never been to, just like the others, I'd never been to anything like that before with a bunch of different people. And it was pretty cool to be with a group of people who have the same interests, because I'm here to tell you this kind of stuff, it's a pretty lonely world. It's really lonely up here where I'm at. Really, there's just not a ton of people around that kind of take that much interest in it. There's a lot of people around that like to make fun of us. But
yeah. Well, first tell us where you're from.
Well, I'm from Southern Indiana. I actually live about 20 minutes south of Bloomington, Indiana, and I'm down right around Lake Monroe. As the crow flies, a couple miles from Lake Monroe, which is tied in with Hoosier National Forest. And our forest here, whenever I refer to Hoosier National Forest, a lot of people don't understand how Hoosier National Forest lays out. It's a huge area, but it's like in 4 different areas, and it goes through like I'd say 60% of the state, and it all the way clear down to the river until you get into Ferdinand State Park area, which is right down near the river. It's really broke up. There actually is a lot of area, but it's a little bit broke up. But there's also a lot of smaller things that are interesting areas and pretty cool areas, even some really small ones around my house, and nature preserves that are really cool. But it's nothing like where we were at. That's second to none around that area. That's a huge area, man. That's a huge area. So that was really cool. So, but as far as the meet and greet, that was awesome. I got to tell you what I did. I got there Friday around noon, and I've heard for a few years now about Dan Rickey, and I've listened to him on Outlaw Radio and or the Outlaw Show, and I just listened to that for hours. I put my headphones on. That's what I go to sleep tonight. Wait till I meet Matt Knapp. I tell him, I'm going to tell him not to get too close to me if I meet him in person, because he's going to put me to sleep. So I'm used to going to sleep. But I would hear those and Bear and Kumbo and their stories. And Dan Rickey was always right in there in the mix of that. And I was hoping that he was going to be there and everything. And I kind of thought he would. But we got there, and I spotted him right out of the gate. I seen Larry and Debbie first, and keep in mind, all the listeners, I haven't met anyone. I'm going here by myself, haven't met anyone. And it felt like I knew, within an hour, it felt like I knew everybody there for 20 years. and everybody was just really kind. But Dan, I seen Dan over there. I said, "You must be Dan Ricky." I've seen him on some videos and stuff, and listened to him a lot, and I hear by the tone of his voice. And so I didn't. We talked a little bit, Friday night. When we went to sleep that night, I crawled in the Jeep. I just slept in the Jeep. I was a wimp, I guess, but I was only staying one night. So I crawled in the Jeep, crawled in that sleeping bag, threw the blanket over me, and I was out. I was out and got up. I woke up at 8 o'clock. So I kind of peeked out, got up, and I looked out the window, and I looked out at the campfire, and it was barely going. Nobody was there. I kind of looked around, and I thought, I'm awful warm right here. It was nice and cozy. And then about 15 minutes later, I was laying there, and I hear somebody, and I look out there, and there goes Dan Ricky toward the campfire. It's like, all right, time to get out. So I instantly threw the door open, got my boots on, and I ran straight to the campfire. And I got to sit there and talk to Dan for a couple hours when nobody was around, and that was the coolest thing. Let's sit and listen to his stories, and his stories about flying airplanes and crop dusting. That was really cool, and close calls, and it was really interesting. I really enjoyed it, and not just Dan Ricky. I enjoyed everybody. Everybody was great. And then what we got into, that was great. I totally didn't expect for us to come across that kind of stuff and or even have to deal with it. I thought there's going to be so many of us, there wouldn't be anything around for 100 miles, making so much noise and everything. But that was super interesting. I learned a lot that day too, but I really enjoyed it. I'm like Patrick. I'm ready for the next one. So you guys let me know so I can bid it on my vacation. I'm bidding my vacations right now for next year. Larry knows what I'm talking about, we got some guys with goes by seniority, and we bid the vacation schedules, and I always try not to eat too many in the summertime, and I thought I'm gonna grab an extra one. I'm gonna use that for a little bargaining power in the event there's a meet and greet and I can't get there. If that guy's got that week bid, I'm gonna say, "Hey, I got a summer week for you, buddy. You want to trade?"
You got to do what you got to do.
That's exactly right. I've already got it planning it out. But yeah. I wish I could have stayed longer, but I had to work clear up till Thursday.
Yeah.
And so I got in late Thursday night and started putting everything together and getting down there. I took off early Friday morning, but I'm only about 4 hours away, so wasn't too bad. That was really sweet. That's kind of nice. So, but I'd like to just be able to go out and do it the whole week. Well, maybe I'll be able to get to do that sometime. But everybody was awesome. He's right about Sally. And if you want to eat, you just follow Larry around because he'll hit all the different campsites.
I'm like a stray dog. I know all the dumpsters to look in.
Well, we was eating. You were eating there by Mark's thing one time, snacking, and then you took off, and then I took off toward the bathroom. And when I got down there, he's up there at Sally's, and I walk up there, and she's up there. She's done fixed you grilled cheese. I thought, man.
Yeah, I don't think I ate anything I brought. Except the Spam. I did eat some Spam one morning. That's right.
I had to pawn that bacon off for a day and a half, and it never happened.
Oh, man.
What was your thoughts on the different activities that we did during the days?
It was really cool. I'll be honest with you, I don't even think you had to plan anything. I think we all hit it off so well that you didn't have to plan anything. We could have just hung out for 2 or 3 days and not missed a lick. I mean, everybody got along that well. I mean, everybody was super nice and just had a lot of the same interest. But that what you're wondering?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I really think about how well that we work together. And like what comes to mind right now. Let me pull it out. We were gifted this Pulsar thermal, and I'm going to tell you, folks, this is just one of the most awesome thermals that is on the market. And me and Louis Perjerski got together and came up with a game plan to the area where the tracks were found. We set the thermal up shooting across the bay in case anything come back down there. And Lewis set up his Zoom recorder right there by it, and we didn't capture anything, but I just really like how everybody had their own input and on different tactics and strategies, and everybody listened to each other as if it was their own idea. And I think that's important when people come together, that you have that mutual respect for one another, and that you want to work together, and you're not a know-it-all, and you don't have these egos and these alpha male or alpha female, personalities that just take over and kind of squash, the whole happiness of coming together and wanting to work with people. And that's one thing that I mean, you take 30 something people coming together and everybody getting along and enjoying each other's company and wanting to work with each other. And, I don't know how many times, what do you think about doing it this way? Or what about this? Or what about that? And that's really one of the big things that I took away from this outing.
That's true. Everybody at the campfire was engaged at one time or another in a conversation with the group or with somebody talking about things. So it wasn't dominated by anybody. It was a conglomeration of ideas and people and different tactics. It was great. It really was. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot from people that had never been on an outing with their ideas and suggestions, and all the way to Dan Rickey that's had all kinds of experience with different things. So it was great.
It was. And we want to thank you for coming, Jamie. And we can't wait to get back with you. And we appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
That's no problem. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite to the meet and greet. I had a good time. Like I said, that's not a whole lot of that kind of stuff going on up here. There is one, and I don't know, I just didn't get the right feeling there and just decided to pass that up a couple of times. And I tried to run some guys down one time in a truck. I told you that story. They had Bigfoot stuff all over their truck, and like they're an investigation team. I thought I was going to wreck my company truck before I got to
it. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, we thank you, Jamie, and we appreciate you coming on tonight.
Hey, no problem. Anytime.
Next, we have the one and only Miss Debbie Jones. How are you tonight, Miss Debbie?
Bum, bum, bum. Miss Debbie ain't ready. She's muted and don't have her video on.
I'm good. How are y'all?
Larry.
I do too.
Well, first of all, I want to personally thank Miss Debbie for the coffee cups that
I can't hear you.
I want to thank you for the coffee cups that you made everybody that attended. And they are beautiful. And I love mine. And I know everybody loves theirs too. And you were such a big part of organizing this and behind the scenes work, and you made it such a success. So I want to personally thank you for that, Debbie.
Well, you're more than welcome. I felt like I did just a minute little thing, and I enjoyed doing it. It was a lot of fun because, that's how you treat family. And this truly is, it really does feel like one great big family.
It was kind of aggravating, wasn't it, in the beginning? Because we couldn't get COVID to leave us alone to plan it very well.
Yeah. But you know what? I think everything happens for a reason, and it turned out exactly like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
It was perfect. I really don't think it could have been any more perfect.
Why don't you tell us? Well, first of all, Debbie drove up from Texas. I mean, we had people coming from all over. Why don't you tell us what you took away from this outing?
Oh my gosh. It was a learning experience in many ways, but more than anything, it was so much fun. Being able to sit and visit with so many like-minded people, but with people that had different ideas than what we might have thought of on how to do things, how to go about things, how to see things when we're looking for evidence. It was awesome. There was so much happening while we were there, and so many different conversations and group conversations and ideas about things for the future. It was awesome. That's just the best word for it.
What I really like working with Debbie is she will lean on other people that has expertise in certain fields. And we were able to lean on Doug Schotter. And he actually called you, and I have no idea how long he was on the phone with us that night. But why don't you tell us a little bit about that conversation you had with Doug?
Well, anytime I talk to Doug, it's an amazing conversation, and I learned so much because Doug has been in this field, I guess you could call it, for almost 50 years. And he has seen and done everything. He knows people that we could only dream about really getting to know and even talk to. He has researched in every way, not just getting out in the field, but he had so many books. He's read every single one of them, so many videos. He's seen everything there is on Bigfoot. He reads and learns everything he can about Bigfoot. And then the giants in our world, in our Bigfoot community, he has reached out in some way or another to these people. He's talked to Bobby Short, of course, who is, not with us anymore. He's talked back and forth and corresponded and spoken with Grover Krantz and Peter Byrne. and just he's good friends with Jeff Meldrum. He's visited with him several times. I know Jeff has gifted him with some prints in the past, and that's just, I mean, I can't even name all of the people that I've sat and listened to him talk about and share things with me about. But he's a wealth of knowledge. So anytime he talks, I listen. And when I saw that night he was calling me, you know, he knew we were at the meet and greet. He was hoping to be able to make it himself, and he's been sick, which I'd love for everybody to keep him in your prayers. But he was sure there in spirit. And I tell you what, when he called, he was so excited because he had just seen the video. He had watched the video, and he just was beside himself, which got me even more excited because this man knows what he's talking about. And we talked, I think it was over 45 minutes. And he told us all sorts of things that we needed to pay attention to and look for and do, because he said that this was probably one of the best trackways that he's ever seen, and that the prints were amazing, which got me more excited because I know that when I first saw those prints, you know, Shelley and I had gone out to look at the one that she had found on Wednesday, the small prints. And, you know, we said, well, you know, looks like just little prints. And we couldn't say it was Bigfoot, of course, but it was definitely interesting because they were so deep. And that's what struck me. But then when Patrick and Shelley found the other prints and we ended up going over there and looking at them, it was pretty amazing. And these were, I mean, those prints, I've never seen anything like them before, not that good. And to have the little prints and the big prints running around and then side by side, you know, and there's one print where it's a big print with the little print standing in front of it, like toe to toe. That was awesome. That was amazing. But just looking at those big prints, I'm like, man, these are just so good. And I was hesitant to get too excited about it, to be honest. And just, you know, we never call anything a Bigfoot anyway, because we don't see them do it or make it. But we were excited, and I kept thinking how amazing these prints were. And with the Bigfoot, the larger print, I'm calling it the Bigfoot, literally. We had the small foot and the little Bigfoot. But with the bigger print, one thing I noticed, that it was on the edge over, you know, further away from the water and the deeper, muddier part where the little ones were running around. But it wasn't as, you know, deep is what I would think it would have been, considering how deep some of these little small prints were. And so I was concerned with that, to be honest. And, but of course, you know, we thought, well, we've got to cast these prints no matter what. I mean, just like Cliff Berkman says, any good researcher is going to cast a print that they found. And so as I was pulling out some of the leaves in the prints, getting it ready to, you know, pour and cast, that's when I started seeing, oh, there is a mid-tarsal break. You couldn't see it because of the leaves.
Uh-huh.
And when I saw the mid-tarsal break, I started getting a little excited. But of course, there was still, you know, to me, they just weren't as deep as I thought they should have been. But then after the cast had sat there for a while, and, you know, we let it sit overnight and try to harden up as good as it could because it was so cold. And then when it was time to remove it, dig it up, Bama, you know, was using everything he could to get it under there. And that's when we found that all of those big footprints were on top of a lot of rocks and
Yeah.
pebbles and compacted, and it was really hard under there. And then I went, oh, okay, well now it makes sense why they weren't as deep as what I would have assumed they would have been. And so that right there, just that part was a huge learning
Yeah.
experience. I mean, that really opened my eyes to some things that I never really had thought about before. And so you don't want to ever dismiss something, especially when it's a print. No matter what you're thinking at the time, go ahead and cast it and learn through that process of what you're doing, because I sure learned a lot, because I was ready to think, these prints are almost too perfect. And
Yeah.
I was worried about that depth, but I learned really fast. But that was another thing that Doug talked about too, was making sure that we collected every bit of evidence that we possibly could. He talked about getting the substrate, the soil samples for eDNA, water samples, because, it had been raining too, and there was water not far away. There were mussels all over the place where they had been, opened and pulled apart. So there were mussel shells. And one of the bigger footprints that I casted had mussels right there next to it. And so I had told Doug that, and he was like, well, make sure you get the mussels. And I got that one. He told me to freeze it until we could get it to where it's, going. I made sure that I got the soil samples, and I took soil straight out of some of the footprints that we did not cast, because there were so many footprints and we ran out of casting material, which we bought all they had. When we drove into town, we drove about 40 minutes. It seemed like one way to get casting material. And
You mean you didn't have any casting material?
no, I didn't. I did not have any casting material. None of us did. We never drove.
Why?
Why?
Because we never cast anything.
Larry, what's that old Indian saying about tracks?
I used to always tell my hunting buddies they'd see deer tracks in a spot and want to put a stand there. And I would say, old Indians say tracks make thin soup. Because just because the track was there don't mean the deer's coming back. It just means they come through that one time.
Yep.
Well, I just want to say, Debbie, you did an excellent job with collecting the DNA samples. And we've got some video that we will show later. And I just think it's really important that we are not know-it-alls, and we don't claim to know-it-alls. We're not even claiming that a Bigfoot made those prints. No. But what we did do is, to our best constraints, was to preserve the evidence that we found. And I think that that's all that we can do, is to do that, to do the best we can, to rely on other people and just go out there. And really what authenticated it for me, that got me excited, was there was old prints, and then there was new prints, and then there was prints that were in between, timestamp in between the old ones and the new ones. And then there was big ones and little ones. And as that water has been dropping over the past month and a half, you could tell that they were going closer to the water. Something was going closer to the water so that it could collect those mussels. And so it was really exciting seeing, and it was multiple trackways, just You know, you could tell that they were coming down there on a regular basis over, you know, weeks, month, or however long. And so I don't know. We take it with a grain of salt, and we try to learn from it. And I think that we all learned from it. And I think we worked well as a team in gathering that evidence.
Definitely. I was worried, you know, because this was a pretty amazing thing there. You know, even if it's not a Bigfoot, it was still pretty awesome to be able to go through all the procedures, you know, that we went through, because there's not too, like Larry said, I didn't even have any casting material. I don't think anybody there did, because you don't find footprints that often.
Yeah.
And so it's not too often that you have something like this where there's a possibility that it is something, to be able to use it as a learning experience as we're doing all of this. And so that in itself was really, really neat. And one thing that I thought was interesting too, like I said, it was really cool when I saw that those big prints had such hard rocks and stuff under it. I had never even thought about that. But one of the other things that I thought was really cool about that area is, as we were looking for other things in the area that could lead towards what, you know, we thought it might be possibly a Bigfoot, the mussel shells, you know, finding that was really cool. That led to, you know, well, they could have been eaten. They could have been looking for mussels and eating, and that could be one reason they're down here a lot, if this is in fact a Bigfoot. But I think some people had gone around the cove some and was looking for more and more, you know, things to see what they could find. And Larry was telling me that, I don't know if it was him or who, but they had seen lots of big rocks that had been turned over because something had been looking under them, and big old rocks. And so, you know, that's, like you said, I think everybody worked so well together. And even though we had such a big crowd and such a great turnout, they were cautious of where they were stepping, what they were touching, how they were touching it. You know, we followed procedures. I was lucky enough, Larry, I may not have had casting material, but I did have gloves in my car. I had bought, you know, a box of gloves just in case I ever did need to collect DNA evidence. And I think Shelley had some too, if I'm not mistaken. And so look at us. Look at there. We didn't have casting material, but we had gloves, and we put those gloves to use.
Well, I brought them for the cooking.
Yeah, that's what I brought them for.
Well, I had them for DNA evidence if that need ever arose.
Whatever.
I sure didn't think I'd ever need them, to be honest. But I was glad I had them.
Well, Miss Debbie, we thank you so much for all the behind-the-scenes work that you did and helping with everything. You're a great coordinator and a great friend. And I'm just so glad that you were able to be there.
Oh, I was too. It was a wonderful, wonderful few days that we had.
Okay. Well, I guess our next guest is Scott Espinosa. And so, how are you doing tonight, Scott?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing good.
Tell us where you drove in from for this outing.
Drove in from Kansas City. I live in a suburb just outside, just a little south of Kansas City. It was about 7.5 hour drive going across Missouri, down through Illinois, drove through the Shawnee National Forest there on the way down to that area of western Kentucky.
That's quite a drive.
Yeah. It was, but it was worth it. It was worth it. I'd heard all the stories about this area, and all the shows. We didn't see any man dogs, but I jumped at the chance to get out to this place, to this area. I hadn't been to that part of the country. Mark, I'd met you out in New Mexico.
And Dan Ricky.
Right. And Bear out there. That was a good time out there. I knew, from that experience and from meeting you out there, that this would be a quality event. You'd talked about what kind of expectations I had. I just wanted to get out in the woods. I'd watched you guys before on your channels, seen you with Kane Michael and what Eric Tipton too. When you guys get out there, I knew you were serious about boots on the ground. And that's kind of the attitude that, I like to take in the woods too. So I knew that you guys had the right attitude about what was going on. I've listened to all your shows, had a great time in the chat. So when this opportunity came up, and had been pushed off a couple times too, I was going to be there, no matter what it took. And, it seemed like everything kind of fell into place for the right conditions to be out there. And just like everybody else has said, it was great to put, faces, names, talking to people one-on-one. It's you get this communication through these Zooms and all this other electronics isn't the same as being there talking to people, sharing a campfire with people. Getting to hear somebody tell their story to you. I think it was Stephen. Stephen Elliott had walked up. He was camping next to me, him and his wife. I pulled in. I think they had been there a little while. I was setting up my tent, and they asked me if I wanted to come over, have some chili with them. And I was like, oh, perfect. Great. Hospitality
What?
right up. Yeah.
Whoa.
I think they probably had enough to go around, but
that Larry Porch eat chili right off the ground.
Yes, I will.
I'd heard that. Stephen comes up to me. He felt comfortable enough. He knew he was going to be in an environment where he could tell his story, share with people. Non-judgmental place. Really good, laid back environment, drama free. I think Debbie mentioned it, like-minded individuals. I think we're all have a good sense of curiosity. That's kind of why we're into this. We all have our different reasons. Like we did at the campfires, go around, each one of us talk about what kind of led us to where we're at, into this interest. Having a chance to get out in the woods there in that part of the country where I'd never been before was great. Meeting Patrick, he camped on the other side of me. I think I was there a half hour, and he was like, oh yeah, did you see the prints? I'm like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, I think there's some prints over there on the other side. We found them. So I was like, oh, okay, well maybe I better go check those out. That was just kind of icing on the cake. The prints were, everybody's kind of talked about, or Debbie talked about the ability to learn, to get some knowledge, to soak up that knowledge. These are great opportunities that you can't always get over the internet or from the show. Is being there with somebody, bouncing ideas off each other, really just having the time to soak up some knowledge, watch casting being done, sort of the protocols that Mark had talked about what you need to observe. And it's a learning experience. I mean, it's like Debbie said, you don't expect finding prints. That's why we didn't have any casting material. I kind of chose, coming this and asked that question on a couple of shows ago about the full moon, because I was like, we're going to be there on a full moon. Maybe there won't be much activity. I'm not sure if I really want to see a Bigfoot or a dog man or something like that. I'm curious. I like to get out in the woods. I like to think about these things, but being able to watch Bama cut up underneath there, the Jersey dig up underneath those prints, being right there while it was going down. I mean, that's you don't get that opportunity very often, and so that was great that happened here. But when I was driving back, I was like, wow, we came across a print, and that is very, if it is a Bigfoot, great, but also it's like that rare of an opportunity for that to happen. It just kind of crosses your mind, and you realize that if you're not out there in the woods, taking those increasing those chances that you're going to find something, then you're not going to find anything. Getting to walk around the point there, go a little further over to the next cove and look at some things over there was interesting also. And hiking back over that ridge where we think that they'd kind of come down to that cove was really interesting, because that's some topography that I wasn't used to. I'm from Kansas, even eastern Kansas has got some hills and some river bottoms and some topography and some elevation, but nothing like that, to where you're walking across ridges looking down 250 feet down into these hollows. And so now you're getting a chance to get out in the woods. You're starting to put two and two together when you're hearing other people talk about where they're at and what they're seeing. Having people that have been there before to kind of guide you to. I mean, I think I mentioned Stephen taking us back over to the Hotel California, but also who was driving around. Rodney and Karen were driving us around to the spots that we were making those calls. The night we went out driving around, I mean, that was an opportunity to see a bunch of different parts of that area too. So it wasn't just like we were sitting around the camp. I mean, we could have sat down there and just had a great old time anyway, from where we were at and how close we were to being able to do some hiking, like taking the walk up the road Halloween night when it was full moon out. That was pretty interesting too. It was just a great, the second, it was a great time, and I second everything that everybody else has already said. But I think what I'd kind of like to focus on is that, you got to get out in the woods, and see these areas that have been talked about, and really observe kind of, what this environment's like. When Larry and I and Jerry went around to that next cove, and we saw all those different mussel shells scattered all over that shoreline for a while. That was different from what we'd seen in the next cove, behind us, where those prints were. So that was pretty interesting to notice that, but not find any tracks, not to really see too much activity over there, to where you think that, oh, well, logically thinking that, well, heck, if they were over there eating them, why wouldn't they be over here eating them? Why wouldn't there be tracks over here? But it just, that doesn't work out. And being able to get back up on that ridge that was in between those two coves, allowed you to walk along that ridge and kind of think. I mean, I saw, what were deer trails for sure, but there were some spaces that were pretty wide along that ridge. It could have been people hiking or whatever, but you start to look at the vantage points of what perspective another animal might have in that area also. Yeah. So that, and we walked back down through there and kind of kicked out just right behind where that would have been, where somebody would have been coming out. And I got an opportunity actually that Friday when I got there. I went over and looked at those prints, and I was like, well, let's see where these kind of came from. Where was this back up there? And I walked back up there and found that old foundation that was up there. But kind of like Mark had spoken about earlier, about walking back up that creek further up to the front side of that ridge. It was more by the campground. In the same way, there were other hollows that kind of went back along that ridge too, that I honestly didn't want to go up there by myself, keep on walking. I got up there ways and nobody else was coming with me. So I was like, I'll do this tomorrow maybe. But I mean, that was the great thing. It was like just being able to get out in that area. And now that I even thought about it as people were talking tonight, if in fact that, turns out to be a legit print, the impact that you start to think now is like, hey, I'm walking in the same area these animals are. That's that's pretty interesting. That kind of makes a bit more of an impact on you, and you start to think about what you kind of share the woods with. Not that not that I see anything, or I did other than that print, but now it just starts to kind of make you think that they could be anywhere. And a lot of the stuff that I do in this part of the country is just walking along river bottoms and things like that, and trying to get over to the Ozarks and look around down through there. So just all the knowledge that you guys were able to give to me, and you can now put that into play a little bit more. So that's what these meet and greets, I think people should realize, is that you get an opportunity to really increase your knowledge a lot, and build great friendships, make connections. I talked to Patrick, to him, West Virginia and Kansas City, we were thinking maybe meeting someplace in between, those are the type of connections you can make. You can hear, other people live close to you. Like I think John lives down in Missouri too. He told some stories. He had some weird things that went on down there. And down by Lake of the Ozarks, that's only about 3.5 hours from where I'm at. And I think there's another spot that isn't too far that one of the other guests had told a story about, some ridge runner or something like that. That's not too far from me, about 30-45 minutes away from here. So, now it's like, okay, well, now if I do come across something, it's like, oh yeah, I better have something to cast a track with. I don't expect it, just like I kind of going down to this meeting. I was like, well, I know, pretty sure I'm not going to see anything. So there's going to be a bunch of people there that'd be scaring most anything out of the woods. So I'd be like, it's a safe bet, kind of, because there's still a little bit of that fear there. So, if anybody had ever thought about, whether they should go to one of these, no second thought whatsoever when going with something you guys put on. I mean, I knew it was going to be great from listening to Mark from before, knowing him, but then also from, getting the vibe from the chat and just watching you guys' show. I knew it would be a pretty welcoming environment, and it really was. And getting to meet Larry too, because Larry's he's pretty funny. But I don't know why you chose me to go around the point there with you. I think you saw that maybe he kind of looks like he's in shape. He looks like he can walk for a while or something.
That's right. I was trying to get you ready to eat whenever we got back.
Well, you built an appetite, that was for sure. And you picked that route back up over that ridge, and I was kind of like, well, there's a probably easier one that's this way, and you're like, no, let's just go right over the top. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it was steep, that's for sure.
I gotta say, I've been wearing a knee brace every day since then because my knee is hurting.
I tried to tell you.
Yep, you did.
But
I told that barbecue was waiting on us, though.
That's true. It did cut off a significant amount of time. Probably took us half the time, for sure.
Well, Scott, it was really great seeing you again, and we are just humble that you decided to come to our little get together, and to be able to talk to you and actually spend more time with you this time than when we were in New Mexico.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was another chance for me to do something different too, is use the FLIR. So that was cool too. I mean, that's another advantage of being there, or somebody showing up and going out on one of these. Is hands-on experience.
Well, just remember, Scott, halfway between Kansas City and North Carolina is LBL.
Yeah, I know. I know the way there now. As long as I just kind of try to avoid St. Louis, I think I'm good.
Yeah. Just let us know.
Hey, I will. I think maybe this spring or something. When it March or something.
You don't want to go when it's hot. It's too many seed ticks and chiggers and.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I kind of thought about that because it is a little bit warmer there than it is here.
Yeah.
So February maybe might be a good time.
Yeah, winter, late fall, early spring is good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's there's so much of that area to check out too. I mean, you know, that was just one little spot. Some of those other places you took us that Saturday night, Friday night, maybe it's Friday night.
Yeah.
Those look like some areas that were back deep in there. It looked like there's some roads you could have taken and, you know, gotten close to the lake that looked just pretty spooky, actually.
Well, we were on the west side, but Spencer and Anthony and I camped on the east side on the Cumberland River side. Oh, and yeah? Anthony actually saw a shadow come across his tarp the last night we were there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we heard things walking around and all that. So, I mean, you can go anywhere that's a good remote spot there and have something go on. And you're not going to get run out and get killed.
Yeah. That's always the key.
Yeah.
Okay, Scott, we really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. And I learned a lot from you. You may not realize it, but I think that we should all be humble enough to learn from each other. And I did learn from you, and I thank you for that.
Well, yeah, same here. And I thank you guys for putting this on and for this show, because I know it's not easy putting all this on. So I really appreciate you guys putting on out a quality show and quality get together. I'm ready for the next one, just like Pat said.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Have a good one.
All right.
See you, Scott.
Shelley Reed, it's time for you to come back on.
Uh-oh.
I'm back.
What are you going to talk about?
I don't know. What am I going to talk about, Larry?
Well, we're kind of running out of time, but why don't...
Okay, I'll talk to y'all later.
Why don't you just kind of go through the first trackway that you found the day before that you found the second trackway, and just kind of tell us a little bit and what went through your mind.
Well, the first day we got there early. It was just me and you and Larry, and it was still misting quite a bit. You know, it rained some that day, and we were expecting, you know, the next 2 days to rain. And you guys were, I don't know what you were doing, setting up camp or talking or something. So I wanted to walk down to the lake and take pictures, look for rocks and shells and things like I normally do. And so I just strolled down to the lake there, and I noticed how low it was, and was walking along the shore and looking. You know, that's the classic rock hounding pose, is your head down the whole time. And you know, I got some pictures over there and was walking around, and I saw this. Like Larry said, the lake's this called Winter Pool. This is really low. I stayed up on the beach. It's really rocky and hard to walk on, but I was coming back towards camp. I didn't want to go too far because the guys didn't know that I'd left and they didn't know where I'd be. So I didn't want to, run off too far. And so I started coming back, and on the way back to camp, there's a part where you can go around the shore, or there's a big muddy part there, or there was like a sandbar that was like the bottom of the lake, like the lake bed. So I was standing there deciding which way should I go. Should I go this way and possibly get into some deep mud, or should I go along the shore? Well, I took the sandbar because it was a little more scenic. But right there in the middle between the shore and the sandbar and the bottom of the lake, there was prints everywhere next to a cypress tree. And I was thinking they were deep. I mean, some of them were, 5-6 inches deep, and they were barefoot. And I was thinking, that looks weird to me. So, of course you're going to look down, or you're going to inspect those things, because even though I wasn't looking for anything, any signs or anything, you always have that in the back of your mind. So I inspected them a little bit, and I thought, well, could be, could not be. I don't know. We'll see. I'll get somebody to come back down here with me. But they were all the same size. I didn't see any other sizes. They were like small kid. Like I was thinking, what mom would let their kid come run around here in the mud in October? So, I went back up to camp. Later on, Patrick came early. He was the first one there. And it was the next day. And after I met Patrick, we got to talking about, rock hounding, things like that, looking for arrowheads and, just kind of walking around, nature, doing nature things. And I said, well, sometime would you kind of show me around? Let's go for a little, walk or whatever. So later on that day, we just started talking again. And, people had started rolling in. We were meeting everybody. And I said, hey, why don't we just head down here? He said, you can find things where the creek runs into the river, which, that's just logical, makes sense. And I said, why don't we just go down here and look around? He said, I'll show you around and kind of look for what to look for things to look for. And, of course, I wanted to look for rocks and shells like I always do. But so we went around the other side of the inlet, the little bay there. And that scared me, Larry. You're squeaking.
Don't be scared.
So we started walking around looking. We didn't go back toward the tracks that were next to. I don't remember if Pat saw them or not. We didn't go that way, but we had walked on around the other way. So as we got around the other side, I started seeing the same size tracks. And I was like, this is weird. I guess they went around the other side of the lake or whatever. And then as we advanced on around to the point, I saw maybe a little bigger one. And a lot, that's when I started taking the pictures. I think, Mark, you showed some of those pictures that I took, the initial ones. And they were sort of eroded. Like it had rained a lot. And I just didn't think anything of it. You have in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, this looks funny, but you can't say for sure, but I'm just going to keep it in mind, but I'm just going to keep looking. You just don't know. So we kept going on around some more. And of course, we're staying up on the shore, where the rocks are. And, you're not going to walk in the mud because why would you? I don't want to get my shoes muddy. So, the prints were right there in the mud. So we went on around and there was a deadfall, like a fallen tree up there. And Patrick had gone on ahead of me and he was, how people keep going. He was just looking around. And I got to that tree and I was stepping around it and I just happened to look down because I'm always looking down. And I saw a print, that first print right next to my foot. And I was like, that's the big one. It was one of the big ones. I can have my knife here. That's the only thing I had with me. There's my knife. I said, Patrick, he was way on down the beach there. I said, could you come back here and look at this and tell me what you think? So he did, and we were like, wow, ooh, ah. And the only thing I had with me was my pocket knife. So I, set that down there and took some pictures because you always want to have some sort of size comparison. And we just started looking around. And for some reason, you've seen the pictures of when we cast it and everything. The footprints went around the tree, not over. It was just a tree sticking out and it went around. That's the main ones we got. And then Patrick walked on down and found some more down a little further down. But we were excited. We were like, this looks really good. We want to go back and tell everybody what we found. And, it was exciting. It really was. I don't want to say 100% because you never know. But I thought it was an exciting find. They look pretty good to me. What do you think, Bama?
I don't. Is Bama on yet? You can come on here, Bama.
I'm on here.
Let me just introduce Bama, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but Bama has over 2.5 decades of working crime scenes. And so one thing that we have talked about earlier is we rely on other people's expertise. We're not going to be so ego that we think that we know it all. And Bama was the perfect person for me to come to and say, Bama, we need to treat this as a crime scene, and so that we do not contaminate nothing. So I put Bama in charge of this, of what we found down there, and really just relied on his expertise for this. So Bama, we'll just let you take it away.
Shelly, you got anything else? So I want to make sure.
I guess not. I mean, guys, did I cover? I mean, that's what happened.
I mean,
Yeah.
This is the Read-Noble Trackway. That's what it's always going to be called, after this. So, but I'll go into it. I'll make it kind of brief. Gosh, I could just talk about the meet and greet itself for a while, and all that. But I probably hadn't been there. I got there about noon on Friday, and I probably hadn't been there maybe 45 minutes. And somebody came to me, and they said, "We think we found some tracks over there." Well, where we were, like they've already said, the water's way down, but it really made a huge, like a prairie across there. And there was places where it was as hard as concrete with fine gravel across there. But eventually there was a stream that came into it, beautiful, clear, and it had the prettiest smooth rocks in that stream there. But man, when you hit that other side, it turned into kind of a muddy mess. Now, the first person that took me over there was somebody that I had never met in person, and that was one of the Pajerski brothers. I always say it sounds like a wrestling team showing up. The Pajerski brothers, or a couple of hitmen or something. But I went with Jerry Pajerski over there. Now, this ended up being a huge blessing in disguise. Jerry was a huge blessing in disguise because the entire time he had a GoPro on the end of a telescoping pole, kind of like a selfie stick or whatever. But he shot, oh gosh, there's no time, probably 2 or 3 hours of video of just this. And he took me over and showed me several of the ones that had been marked with a stick in the ground, which was great. Now, let me say this for anybody that doesn't know me or hasn't been around me. I'm pretty quiet and reserved. I try to be a humble person and friendly, and I don't think I'm better than anybody. And anybody that's been around me can attest to that. But over the years, I've got to do a lot of things over the years, and helping process thousands of crime scenes has been one of them. Other people have different expertises, and I've always talked to Mark about this. Everybody has something to add. I always say that. So I just want to touch on this for just a second. I sat over there and looked at those tracks when Jerry was there, and the several big defined ones I saw, I really sat there and looked at those, and I thought, man, somebody's messing with me or messing with us. Because I just thought, gosh, man, they're so perfect. I mean, but when you think about the substrate or the mud or whatever they were in, I just kept looking at that thinking, because I'm looking at the depth of it. I knew how many days it had been raining before that. And there was a thin layer of some type of a moss or something over this whole area. So that kind of kept the rain from just beating these things and leaving little, little pock marks all in them. So that was kind of a blessing too. But Jerry took me over there and messed around, and I came back to set camp up, but I went back by myself because man, Mark knows this about me. My mind works on structure and absolutes and things with my brain have to kind of fit into a category. And I just thought about it. And this is conclusion I came to, since we didn't see what left the tracks, I just thought, well, worst case scenario, we have a 50-50 shot that a Bigfoot walked out of those woods and walked along this bank with maybe a juvenile with it. And that's what we have. Or somebody made a really, really good set of casts or something to put on their feet, because it was a pretty contaminated scene, justifiably enough. I mean, there was a bunch of people there, and a lot of it was covered with leaf litter, so we weren't able to see tracks that day that we were able to see the next day. Because the next day, anybody that was there, I'll tell you, man, the wind would just blow leaves through your camp. I mean, just roll leaves through there. So, man, I thought about that night. And the next day we kind of did a little sightseeing and whatnot. But somebody went and got plaster. And I mean, they drove probably, I don't know, 80 miles round trip to get this plaster of Paris, which isn't the best thing to cast tracks with. But I'm going to say this over and over. We did the best with what we had. And I think it's going to end up coming out well, what we did. But man, we cast those things for the longest time. And the last two, once you get them cast, it's kind of neat, because then you can sit back and you can see the cast and see the path that it took as it came down out of some woods, and it kind of looped around the end of a log where it got really sloggy and muddy. I mean, it was kind of a mess over there. And it's worked its way up there. And I just kept thinking, even one of the small prints, I think was maybe, gosh, I don't have any of the, I want to tell everybody this. We have documented, the stride length from toe to toe, heel to heel, from mid-tarsal break to mid. We took all kinds of measurements. We did all that. And I want to say that Jerry is the one that wrote all that, actually on the back of a paper plate while we were saying But we were taking as good of measurements as we could. Once that wind got to kicking up the next day, though, it showed several more that we hadn't noticed, which actually looked older than the other ones. It actually looked like we probably had a trackway, and then maybe it had rained a couple of days and it hit a spot, and maybe there was another trackway. But there were places where even those small tracks would turn around and come back to the bigger tracks, which was kind of neat. And there's one that we tried to cast, which was, it was such a beautiful track, and maybe 4 inches from the toes of the big track was a small track facing it, like it had come up to the bigger tracks. I thought that was kind of neat. If you see the pictures, and we'll post a lot more pictures, and we want to let the cast cure and let all them, because we took a lot of mud with those casts. The only thing that I figured that I could do was I cut a big square around those, and we took some huge cookie sheets that Sally had brought, that made food with, and we literally cut out a big square and probably took 4 or 5 inches of dirt from under each of those, along with the cast when we set them up there. I really was waiting, because those last ones, I wanted to get my fingers. Luckily, I actually had really good gloves, the kind of gloves I used to use, and they give you a good feel, a good dexterity, and you can feel really good with them on. And I couldn't wait to get my fingers and hands up underneath those casts when I pulled them out, because one of the last two, and it was a right foot and a left foot, they had taken a beating in that rain. But and even though it had probably degraded it a little bit, and maybe it even made the track look bigger after that too, I have to say that. But that rain had really kind of rounded out some of those hard edges and some of those deep toe prints, and it made it look like some type of like a trademark Bigfoot print you'd see in a museum, or something along that line. So that's why I was excited to get to those last ones, because I was looking at the depth of them, and I was thinking, man, and it's true, lots of people were commenting, we could not make prints in some of that substrate because of the way it was, and these were deep. I'm telling you, these things were a few inches in the ground, and we poured those dang things full of plaster. I mean, we ran out of plaster because some of them were so good. I said, we've got to get these out of here, because once again, we could have had something that was extremely significant or not, but you got to try to take whatever evidence you got there. I think that everybody kind of did the best they could with it. When it came to recovering them, there was 3 of us in there. There was Louis Pajerski, one of the other Pajerski brothers. Everybody, maybe 3 people helped take each track out, because I had kind of mentioned that if this really is what it is, let's get maybe a couple of people in there just so they can say that they helped pull these tracks out of there. Because being the type of person I am, when Mark came to me that morning and he said, I would like for you to kind of, oversee doing this. Well, first I felt honored, but I didn't feel worthy of it. But I told him, I said, I'm very honored that you asked me, and I said, I will do that. I said, but I don't, maybe many years ago, but now I don't like giving people directions, bossing people around that much and stuff. But when y'all see those videos and you see the mud, and I can understand being critical of it. When we got finished, I mean, we had hundreds and hundreds of boot prints, and we tracked all over that thing. But before we had done that, we really had picked out the best castable ones that we could find, because of course we had a limited amount of casting material, but there really was a lot of them there that kind of, even if you took a picture of them, it wouldn't really look like a footprint. So I'm excited for those to cure out, and for them to get we're trying to kind of let all that mud dry a little bit so they can change those. But yes, we took a lot of dirt from under that. We put that into some paper envelope containers. And there were a lot of big mussel shells, huge ones, up there at LBL. Those things were opened up, and we took some of those and we put those in envelopes too. And we just tried to kind of, do the best we could with what's interesting. I wanted to touch on this. I think it was the last track of that trackway, which is beautiful. If I could have a copy of that, I'm going to pay to have a copy made of that track. But I cut around that thing with my big old hunting knife, a big square. And we're kind of trying to do this with a shovel, with a spade. And we're in there with fingers and stuff like that. And, but the whole time I was thinking, I never really said anything, but I thought, man, I want to feel what's underneath this track. Just because of the depth of it. And it was higher up on that sloping bank. So I knew that it was really hard material up there. And we cut around that, pried it up, and Louis Pajerski was helping do that. Now he works construction. And that's one of those things I talk about. That's a guy that's probably uses a shovel every day. So he has a feel with stuff. So we gingerly went around that. And when I got my fingers under there, maybe a half an inch below the bed of that track, it turned into the finest gravel, like a pea gravel under there. And the reason I'm saying that's because, man, that ground it was really hard. And even if it had taken a rain, there really wasn't that much mud on top of that for it to leave that really, really good track. If it was left by a Bigfoot. I always say that because since we didn't see it. The last thing I wanted to touch on is the first big defined print in the whole trackway was beautiful. We've got pictures of it taken over people's shoulders, and it was close to that big log that Shelley was talking about. And it's as if it approached this log, and you know, that thing was up above waist high. It's as if it approached that and thought, man, I'm not going to straddle this log, go over it. I'm going to go around it. So it left 2 or 3 really good prints. And the best looking one to the eye and to a camera, we were looking at it going, oh, there's a mid-tarsal break. Well, the back half of that print was so thin. Oh gosh, it was a quarter of an inch deep in it. Well, you realize that right underneath that mid-foot, once I got to going under there with my fingers, there was a stick about that big around, and it was long and it was rotten. And that thing had stepped on that, and that rotten stick underneath it had actually bowed, and the stick came up on each side of that track. And it would be so nice if we could have showed people, you know, how, I always tell people to leave stuff in the tracks when you cast it. I mean, if somebody goes, well, that's a weird looking track. Well, you don't realize that the thing stepped on a big old stick that maybe somebody took out of the track. So that was interesting. These are just things that I observed that I found interesting, because, man, I'm looking for toes moving. I'm looking for things. I want to know that something left that track that has flexion in its foot. And I was looking for things that showed me that thing slid and that its foot moved and that it has arches and bones and stuff in its foot. That's really the only thing we could do. And I kind of came to all those conclusions early on, and I just simply thought, gosh, man, we've got to try to, you know, cast these things. I thought, if this, I will always go back and say that, if this is what it is, these really are some of the best tracks, the first tracks I've ever seen. I'll say that. These are some of the best tracks I've ever seen, you know. Whether you go to somebody's little museum or look at some of Meldrum's casts or something, you know, man, these really were something else. So I'm excited, and I hope everybody's looking forward to seeing them, because I hope they come out good. I think it will even, you know, maybe add a little more validity to it if that's possible. But like I said, we're close to a campground. We have to think logical. There's people around, but man, if somebody did that, it was a very good set that they carved out, or ever how they did it. But maybe sometime later on, when some of us talk in person, we'll talk a little more about some of that. And I know we're running short on time, so that's why I was kind of trying to breeze through that. But I just really appreciated Mark and them asking me, and you know, having enough trust in me, and like I said, I think everybody did the best they could. It makes you want to put together a kit, you know, with casting material and crime scene tape and flags or whatever. And that's really the reason that they do that on the street, is once you get all those little flags up and stuff, whether you're marking shell casings or whatever, you can really see the pattern as it spreads out. So that was neat. That you'll probably see a few pictures to where once those tracks were cast in white, you can really see how you can draw a line between them, actually where they went, even though some had degraded to where you know, there's big, huge blank spots in between some of them. And here's what's interesting, and I'll let it go at that. Those tracks were pretty close together. I mean, they had a long stride, but a lot of them were close together. And me and Barry Browning were talking about this. We're just standing there, just talking about it. And somebody says, well, the steps aren't very long. And I said, you know something? I said, if I were a Bigfoot and I've been up here in the woods somewhere taking rain for 3 or 4 days, then I came walking down here, and this last thing I want to do is slip and fall down this mud and just get all nasty and stuff. And I said, even a Bigfoot or an animal walks carefully. And then we also kind of threw out the idea of, well, maybe what if it was tending to a little one that was with it? When you walk with your child, you look down at your child and you take little short steps because your child takes short steps. So this is all speculation. But this is a speculation you do, I guess, when you're standing over a really good trackway. And it was a huge stroke of luck that it was even there, and it was a bigger stroke of luck that somebody slogged across that muddy area and found those tracks over there. So anyway, I'll kind of let it go at that. I hope that maybe added a little info to it.
Well, I don't know. I appreciate you so much for your knowledge and your expertise, but more than that, I appreciate your friendship and the friendship that we have made since meeting you and going camping with you. Your integrity is impeccable, and
I'm pretty easy to get along with. I wanted to say this about it. Of course, when I showed up, there's Dan Rickey, who I'd never met before, and there's Dan. And I kind of just walked up to him and I said, Dan, and of course he looked at me. I'm a stranger, and I said, they call me Bama Murdoch, and he just big smile came on his face, and we talked occasionally. But he's the last person I spoke to when I left. And he was inside a tent breaking some stuff down. And I walked in there and I said, Dan, I said, man, I just wanted you to know that it was a treat to meet you. And I said, man, I just want to hug you. And I hugged him. And when I finished hugged him, he looked at me. He goes, Bama, he goes, I think you and I are great friends now, or something like that. And it was almost like I felt like tearing up for a second. And I did. He said, he was just really serious. He goes, man, I think that you and I are great friends now, or forever friends now, or something like that. And I thought that was a nice thing to say. And that really sums up the whole camp out. I mean, in 15 minutes, once you learned who everybody was, it's just kind of like you've been hanging around together. And I like people. I'm a social person. A lot of times I don't like to hang around people. That's why I camp way down at the end away from everybody. But just, when people say that it's a friendly thing to go to and it's a comfortable place to go to, man, it really is. It's just fantastic. And we had people come from a long ways off, and I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Also, but anyway, that's it for me.
Well, Larry, what is your final comments on the outing and how things went?
Well, the outing was fantastic, no doubt. We had a bunch of good people there. And I know whenever Shelley approached me with those telling me about the smaller tracks, I was like, I don't know. We're right here on the lake. I don't know. And then they found the bigger tracks, and I'm like, Oh man, with a meet and greet going on, you just get this knot in your stomach, like,
Yeah. Not
and then,
now. Not here.
yeah, not now. And then they finally got me over there to look at that track, and I was like, holy crap, that's perfect. It's almost too perfect. And I'm looking up in the woods for the fat guy with the TV camera coming down to say, hey, we got you, you know. But then they found the other tracks, and, you know, if it had been one, I'd have been like, nah. But then they found 3, 4, 5 other tracks, left, right. The moss is over them, and you can tell where the moss has been knocked off. I mean, if it was a flat replica made by somebody carving wood, I think all the moss would be off the whole print, and that ain't the case. Hey, the bottom line is it's either 100% legit or somebody punked us, one or the other. And that's all I can say.
Well, you know, I kind of said it earlier, but what really kind of sold me on it was the different timestamps of the different trackways.
Yeah.
And we didn't release to anybody where this outing was going to be at. And some of those trackways you could tell that were probably a month old before anybody knew where we were going. There was old tracks and new tracks and tracks in between and big tracks and little tracks. And so that's kind of what it sold it to me. And, you know, we just want to say a disclaimer that we are not saying a Bigfoot did this. We don't know what did it because we did not see how they were made. But they were made by something. There is no doubt that it was made by something. And Larry and I have researched this area, and we have had activity of what we believe could be possibly Bigfoot activity at this very spot. And so, and that's why we picked this spot. And you even went after Spencer and Anthony left to check out the campground and see if there was anybody in there. And Larry says, man, we got this place to ourselves. They even got all the fire rings up. And it's just empty out here. I said, it's going to be a great outing. We don't have to worry about, you know, other campers being in between this large group that's coming in here.
I think there was 2 other campers there when we were there. I think it was an older couple down by the boat ramp, and then maybe a hunter up. Well, I don't even know if there was another one there. Maybe it was just the older couple.
Yeah. And so we basically had this place to ourselves. And I guess I just want to say, yeah, the trackways that Shelley found are really cool, but it's not near as cool as the people that we met and the people that we got to spend time with. And that's something that I cherish and will always treasure it, that these people had enough faith in us to drive these long distances and come in here and want to spend time with us. And it's kind of amazing. Somebody would pull up and they would know me by name. And I know that probably happened to you too. And I'm thinking that is so odd, but I guess this has a little to do with it. But that's just something that I'm not used to. And I'm very humbled by that.
Well, we'll be back in that area.
Yep. Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. We would appreciate it if you're not subscribed, to subscribe to us. Hit the thumbs up. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section, and we will all chime in on it and try to answer your questions. And we will see y'all again. Same bat time, same bat channel. Night, night, footers.
This has been a Sawdust production.